Welcome to Vida Las Vegas Podcast. We're two physical therapists living the life in Las Vegas. I'm Dr. Erica.
And I'm Dr. Joe. We created this podcast for two reasons. First, to connect the healthcare, wellness, and fitness communities in Las Vegas. And second, to highlight all the amazing people we've met along the way.
Thank you for listening, and remember to take care of yourself.
Today's guest is Las Vegas native Grayson Gearin. Grayson is a high school teacher at West Career and Technical Academy. He runs the CrossFit program there, along with another teacher. We talked to Grayson about mindset and life lessons he teaches his students through movement and exercise. Welcome to La Vida Las Vegas Podcast. We appreciate you being on the show.
Guys, thank you.
So, who are you and what do you do?
I'm Grayson Gearin. I'm a teacher. I'm a school teacher. I work for Clark County School District over at West Tech. It's a magnet school, and me along with another teacher, we run the CrossFit program over at West Tech.
It's very cool, and I had met you actually because you were doing a competition over there, and that was quite a thing. I was really impressed. We've been doing this since 2014, and we started out with nothing, and we slowly accumulated more and more equipment, and we got to the point about a year and a half ago where we're like, dude, we've got enough equipment that we can do some pretty neat things and do some things where we can actually fundraise more money than, selling t-shirts or having another bake sale, So again, me and the other guy who run this CrossFit thing, we're like, let's host these competitions. And I mean, there's a huge kind of demand for it here in Vegas. I see so many other gyms hosting competitions, and we have a pretty ideal location where we have a full gymnasium, and we have bathrooms. We don't have to do porta potties. We have a full parking lot. And I'm like, I think this is something that people would actually kind of like, and it'd be a win-win for everybody. And so, yeah, that was awesome. So how'd you get started with that? Because that seeing it now, it looks like it would be such a big project to put together, and also convincing a school to go to the people that make decisions and say, okay, there's this thing called CrossFit, and we're going to put it in your gym.
Right, because CrossFit's so dangerous, right? And it's so funny because I teach CrossFit, I teach PE, and if I'm being honest, I send more kids to the nurse with injuries in my PE class than I do in my CrossFit for sure, with bloody noses and whatnot. But I got a little bit lucky. I was at another school. I was at Seville Middle School for a while, actually, when I got into CrossFit. And it was right around, I think, the 2013-2014 school year where there was this grant that a lot of the schools in Clark County, and started out with only high schools that applied for this grant. And it was to buy them CrossFit equipment, and they wanted to start instituting these CrossFit programs. And I got the job at West Tech at 2014, and the guy I replaced actually is the one who applied for the grant. He had no idea what CrossFit was. He was like, oh, I can get free equipment for my school. I'll try to get this equipment. So when I got there, I saw their CrossFit club, or whatever they wanted to call it, which really wasn't anything. They had 6 barbells, and we're talking the barbells you'd buy at Big Five that had a big hex bolt at the end of it. They don't spin at all. Good luck trying to snatch or clean with these barbells. And they, I don't know, had 180 pairs of parallettes, and that was about it. And I'm like, this is barely CrossFit equipment. What do you guys do here? And he's like, I just did it for the equipment. And I'm like, well, I kind of want to help with this CrossFit thing. Can you guys mind if I help out? And they're like, dude, you can take it over if you want. I was like, all right, sweet, I'll take it. I was at West Tech for 2 months, and that's when I met this other guy, Eric Swenson, who I work with now. And he started off in this ultra running thing, and he kind of got into the CrossFit thing, and him and I work really well together, and we just started building this up just one piece at a time. We went to our principal. We actually had a really, really supportive admin that was like, what I want this to take off. What do you guys need to make this better? And I was like, well, the first thing we need are some barbells and weights. We could use, I don't know, say 10 barbells that are
that cost more than $65 and a couple 100 pounds worth of weight, and we can make that work for a while. So she bought us 5 men's barbells, 5 female barbells, and maybe 1,000 pounds worth of bumper plates. And we just had to be super creative because, again, our CrossFit classes, we have 35 kids, 36 kids in that class, and we've got 10 barbells and maybe 1,000 pounds of weight. So we just made that work little by little, and we started raising money, selling T-shirts, again, bake sales, like I told you at the beginning, because we had no equipment. And I was like, we have to make money somehow so we can get some nice things. And then at the end of that first year, it was almost like a selfish reason. I was like, well, I don't want these kids to go home and not do anything for the next 3 months and then have to start all over. That's going to make my job harder. Like, I want these kids to keep working so we can progress next year. So I was like, how about we do this summer CrossFit program, and we won't require anybody to do it, but hey, if you want to come work out with us in the morning, we'll charge you, I don't know, $100 for the whole summer, and you'll get a T-shirt and you get to work out with us, and it started off as just one class at 7 a.m, and I was shocked how many kids were like waking up at 7 o'clock in the morning during their summer to come work out with us. And we're like, dude, we have too many kids. We got to do a second class. So we did a 7 o'clock class and then like an 8:15 class. And I don't want to say money was pouring in because we were only charging $100. But there was a huge demand, and we did that for a couple years. And all of a sudden we bought one rower, and then we were able to buy another rower until eventually we stockpiled enough equipment to the point where we have 12 rowers and 12 bike ergs and thousands of pounds of weight. And now we're like, sweet, we can take this fundraising thing to the next level now with hosting the CrossFit competitions. And I mean, like, the kids just are totally bought in. They absolutely love it. Again, our school is kind of interesting in the fact that we don't have sports. It's a magnet school. We don't have a football team to compete with. We don't have a baseball team to compete with. So the kids who are into the CrossFit thing, they treat it like their sport, which is kind of nice, where some of the other schools have a little bit of difficulty competing, butting heads with the football coach or whatnot. So
that's cool. So what's a magnet school for people that wouldn't understand that term?
So it's still affiliated with Clark County School District, but there's like you have to apply to get in. Not anybody can go. Anybody can apply, but you have to have a certain GPA to get in, and then you have to have you choose a program. Like, so there's a couple magnet schools in Las Vegas. The one I work at, we have like a nursing program. There's a biomed program. There's a photography program. There's a sports med program. There's a digital media program. So the kids choose a program, a field that they're interested in, and they apply for that program. And then again, they have like so many spots per. They're like, okay, we're going to accept, I don't know, 90 kids in the nursing program, and once it's full, it's full, So it's still like free. It's not a private school. It's not a charter school, but again, it's still a lottery kind of to get in. I don't know if a lottery is the right word, but just because you want to go there doesn't mean you're going to get in. There's only so many spots. So,
gotcha. So what made the switch from, like, who decided to do the competitions? Because then you have all this equipment now. And then who came up with the idea of like, hey, we can use this to hold competitions and make more money to pour back in the program?
Well, like I was saying earlier, we have a very like supportive admin, and they're like, we see what you guys are doing. Like, between Eric and myself, again, we're both just passionate about this CrossFit thing. We love it. We see what it's doing for the kids, and I think our admin team can kind of see the passion that we have for it, and they see kind of what we produce out of our students and how much our students like really love it. Like, again, we have, okay, I guess this is rewinding back a little bit, but my first year over there was one CrossFit class, and then I started an after school CrossFit club with like about 6 kids who were coming pretty regularly after school. And then you fast forward to last year, before the whole COVID thing hit, we have 6 CrossFit classes throughout the day. where I teach 3 of them, and then Swenson teaches the other 3. Each one of those classes are completely capped. We cap them at 36. And that's even pushing the limit, having a class of 36 with our space that we have. But every year, like freshmen and sophomore can take it in lieu of a PE credit, and then in your junior and senior year, you can take it as an elective. And I have to tell all my kids, if you want to make sure you get this CrossFit class, it has to be your first choice on the elective. If you put it as choice number 2, I guarantee you won't get it, because there's just not, there's only 6 classes, there's only 36 spots in each class, and it's the first elective that gets like full, right? There's so many kids who put it as their first option, and they get their second or third option because there's just no space. And then we have an after school club that last year we had to like almost rotate days, because again, we were getting 60 kids coming in after school, kids who aren't even in the class. And we want to do the best we can to accommodate all these kids, but at the same time we have to keep it safe too, because if we have it just like a madhouse in there, then the quality of the product deteriorates really fast too. So
For sure.
Wow, that's a really cool experience. I don't know if I've ever heard any other like high school programs doing that. Have you noticed, so from the beginning of when you started, and you have the influence of like how some of these kids have grown throughout the 4 years, do you notice that these kids are now doing CrossFit as they're aging into adults and going to college and that type of stuff?
For sure, so like this is my 7th year now starting at West, so I've had now 3 graduating classes who've gone through CrossFit like 4 years and then move on. And at West anyway, like I don't know what it's like at other high schools, but at West, I would say, well over 90% of the kids go to college for sure. And most of them go out of town, right? And we get tons of them that go to Reno. In fact, Reno has a really sweet facility from what I understand, because I see and I speak to some of my students or former students who have moved on, and it's awesome to see them just continue on this like same path that they've been on, where they continue doing CrossFit at Reno. I have a kid who is a coach here locally at Hellfire CrossFit, which I think is awesome to see someone take it to that level. I have another girl who graduated 2 or 3 years ago. I think she's a junior now in Reno. And she's one of the coaches up at Reno CrossFit now, and seeing them get their L1 and continue on with it, I love it.
Now, as you have worked with some of the kids, have you noticed any translation in with some of the parents as well? I guess that's kind of an influence of this is kind of a lifestyle thing, or
for sure. And it's so funny because, I mentioned earlier about this like summer CrossFit thing that we did and turned it into a little bit of a fundraiser. And it was right, even in that first year, I'd have kids coming up to me like, hey, so my mom wants to know if she can do summer CrossFit with us. And I'm like, well, if she'll pay $100, sure, And so it's crazy to see. We utilize Sugar Watt. If you're familiar with CrossFit, you're probably familiar with that app. So we have all our kids logging on Sugar Watt and stuff like that. And all of a sudden, I see some names. I'm like, I recognize that last name, but I don't recognize that first name. And I'm like, hey, who's this? They have the same last name as you, and they're like, oh yeah, that's my brother. He started getting into this, or it's my mom or my dad, and they see the progress that they make. These kids, they make like I'm 40 years old. I feel like I still make progress, but I don't make progress like a 16-year-old who's just got testosterone oozing through their veins. So they see the changes that they make so quickly, and the parents get intrigued for sure.
Have you noticed, so now that they have that ability of, part of CrossFit is, being in a healthy lifestyle, have you noticed any transition in terms of what kids are doing at home in terms of like nutrition, or like they're being more aware of, those types of lifestyle factors that we typically, it's hard to teach if the parents aren't involved or the family's not involved? For
sure. And it's so funny because when kids are like, say, freshmen and sophomores, and they're getting into this CrossFit thing, and they're like, oh yeah, I want a 6-pack. What do I need to do? And I'm like, well, I mean, you can't outwork the bad diet. I wish I could tell you could, and you'd have to take your nutrition just as seriously as you take the workout business, and they're like, and you can see they're I'm not going to sacrifice my Doritos at lunchtime. And then their junior and senior year rolls around, and you can totally tell the switch that it goes from, instead of wanting that six-pack, they're like, how do I get better at this CrossFit thing? And I'm like, well, you already do CrossFit 5 or 6 days a week, so the next step is getting rid of those Doritos at lunchtime, and it's boom, gone. I don't want Doritos. Because their passion for CrossFit turns into, I want to get good at this. I want to be able to do a muscle up. And I'm like, I mean, how much easier would a muscle up be if you lost 10 pounds? You know, if you're 10 pounds lighter, that muscle up is significantly easier. And all of a sudden, their junior and senior year, they're super motivated. And it's funny, like, yeah, they want the six-pack and everything, but they want to get good at CrossFit. They see they love the gymnastics. They think it's like circus tricks for them. They love handstand push-ups. They love muscle-ups. And they're just, when they get, like, they love the barbell too. They love hitting PRs, but when you see a kid light up, get their first muscle up, their first handstand push-up, that's where they're definitely, that's their motivating factors for sure.
And then the Doritos go right in the trash.
Oh, right in the trash. They're like, I can sacrifice the Doritos now. It's so funny.
I wish I would have had that mindset when I was a senior in high school. I think Doritos and Mountain Dew were pretty big.
Right.
Growing up in the 90s, I guess. Huh?
For sure. I mean, I still struggle with that right now. I'm like, oh.
Right. They make a new flavor every so often. They're like,
I mean, it used to be so much easier for me. And like, I'm a relatively new dad. I got a 1-year-old and 3-year-old, and dude, they love like the goldfish. I was never into goldfish, and now I'm like, oh, don't throw those things away.
Right, for sure. So why Las Vegas?
You know, I'm a Las Vegas native. I'm born and raised here. I guess not too many people my age and older can say that. I absolutely love Las Vegas. Again, I was born and raised here. I'm a product of Clark County School District. There are things to complain about for sure with Vegas, but I think there's things to complain about anywhere. But there's so much to do here, and if we don't offer it here in Vegas, it's within a 3 or 4 hour drive. You know, we have Lake Mead, we got Red Rock. If you want to go snowboarding, there's Bryan Head, that's 3 hours away. There's Mammoth, that's like 4 hours away. If you want to go to the beach, that's 4 hours away, you know. I think it's a pretty awesome location. Like, we don't have very many earthquakes or tornadoes or hurricanes, you know. Yes, it gets hot in the summer, but my AC works pretty good. So I just like it. I really do. I love the 24-hour town. I love, I don't know, it's all I've ever really known, to be honest, too. I just don't see myself leaving unless, I guess, if my kids get older and they go somewhere else, I'm pretty sure I'll follow them, maybe. But for right now, I like it here.
Yeah, we're still relatively new. We've been here for a few years now. But one of the things that we noticed, too, is that when we first got here, we're like looking at the temperature every day. We're like, oh, it's 110. Oh, it's 115. And then after you've been there for a few years, and you're just like, it's just going to be hot. Like, it doesn't matter what the number is anymore. Triple digits.
For sure. Even 100 like kind of feels good, like this, because we just got through like a heat wave. I think it was like 2 weeks ago. It was literally like 117 for like 5 days in a row, and I was like, I don't know if I can handle that. And then all of a sudden it got windy one day, and the next day it was like 79. I was like, oh, this is why I love it here, you know. But yeah, anything above, say, 105 just feels the same to me, you know. 105, 110, 115. That all just feels hot.
Yeah, I couldn't even tell the difference anymore at that point.
So what was it like growing up in Vegas?
I don't know if it was really any different than growing up anywhere else, you know. I can't say I never went on the Strip, you know. Both of my parents actually made their living on the Strip. They were both poker dealers, so they were driving back and forth to the Strip every single day, obviously. My dad used to deal poker at the Stardust, and then my mom was dealing poker at the Bellagio and the Mirage before there was the Bellagio. So, again, they made their living on the Strip. But for me, I mean, I was in the neighborhood. I played Little League baseball like normal kids from other places, and I played soccer, and high school was the same as high school just about anywhere else.
I think, you know. I remember like when I did play high school baseball, and we'd go on tournaments, and people would be like, oh, where are you from? I'm like, oh, we're from Vegas. And they're, oh, do you live in a casino? I'm like, no, I live in a house in a neighborhood, just like you do, you know. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if it was any different.
So the other than doing CrossFit and going to other places for like skiing or something like that, what else do you do to spend your time here?
Dude, I love the Golden Knights. I'm a little heartbroken right now that they just got kicked out by the Dallas Stars. And it's funny because 3 years ago, I didn't know a lick about hockey. I just found out we were getting this professional sports team, and I was so excited. I'm a baseball guy. I played baseball my whole life. And when I found out we were getting a sports team, I was like, oh, what are we going to get a baseball team? I've been a diehard Red Sox fan my whole life. What am I going to do if we get a baseball team, you know? And, it'd be cool if we got a basketball team or a football team. When they announced we're getting a hockey team, I was just like, are you kidding me right now? Like, that's the only sport I don't care anything about. I don't know anything about. And then I had a buddy of mine who's been into hockey forever, a diehard Bruins fan. And he was like, dude, you just need to go to a game. Like, come with me to T-Mobile. And I'm like, all right. And I was hooked. It was amazing. And I just love that I have a hometown team to root for. You know, my whole life I was a Boston Red Sox fan. And it's cool to be a Red Sox fan, but they play their games on the other side of the country. And I never got to see them really, you know. They'd play the Angels, and I'd make the road trip to Anaheim and go see a baseball game. But again, now that I have my own kids, I love that they're going to have this hometown team to like root for. Like, that's awesome. I love going like through downtown Summerlin and seeing these Golden Knights stickers everywhere and all these drivers with their Golden Knights license plates. And I'm like, dude, this is awesome. I love it. So I'm really into that. I'm really into like mountain biking. I love mountain biking out at Red Rock. There's some awesome mountain biking out there. So.
Yeah, seeing hockey live is way different experience than watching it on TV. I've had some friends say the same thing. Like watching on TV, they're like, "Oh, it's cool." Then they go to a game, and hockey games are just a totally different thing.
And you know, like now that I'm into it, and now that I've like done all the Google searches and learned all the rules of hockey, I can watch it on TV and enjoy it just as much. Well, I shouldn't say just as much, but I can enjoy it quite a bit on TV. But I don't know what it is about like T-Mobile, like because it only holds 18,000. It's not like that big, huge football stadium, Allegiant Stadium. This is everybody's kind of like on top of each other, you know, and it's awesome. Just you score a goal and the whole place just erupts, and when everybody's that close to each other, you can just feel it. Yeah, and that's almost kind of like what, you know, my son, he's into the Star Spangled Banner right now, and I was showing him the other day a video of that guy Golden Pipes, who sings the Star Spangled Banner for the Golden Knights in their home games. I was showing him the video, and I was like almost sad for a minute, like with all this COVID stuff going on. Like, dude, are we ever going to be able to get back into T-Mobile Arena and watch a game? You know, like high-fiving and hugging strangers when they score a goal. Like, I personally, I want to get back to that.
I'm sure we'll get back to it soon. So, What do you feel about the Raiders coming here? That's your second team, another sports team coming in.
Football's funny to me. You know, my dad's from the East Coast, so that's why I'm kind of this Red Sox and this Bruins. I used to be a Patriots fan until, I don't know, about 8 years ago, I started dabbling into fantasy football. And this has ruined me as a football fan for a team. It's made me a huge fan of players. But, you know, 8 years ago, if you would have ever thought I would root against the Patriots, it would have been just asinine until all of a sudden I'm like in week 8 of fantasy football, and the guy I'm playing has Tom Brady, and I'm over there screaming at the TV hoping he throws an interception. I'm like, who am I right now? So I'm excited for the Raiders. I can't say I've ever been a Raiders fan. I've been to a couple football games live, and I think football is one of those sports that's
like the opposite of hockey, where it's built for TV. Like I love watching football on TV on Sunday. I don't care who's playing, especially with fantasy football. I can watch any game and totally be into it and love it. But man, at live, it's like the play lasts, I don't know, 7 or 8 seconds, and then they're like huddling for a minute, and I want to see the slow motion, and I spent more time looking at the jumbotron than I do at the actual field, and I was like, oh no, I'd rather watch this game on TV. Mm-hmm. So
that's a cool thing about hockey, is that when you go and physically go to it, you're not watching the jumbotron, you're actually watching the puck,
you're watching
the game, right? Yeah.
It moves so fast, and you only have to give it 20 minutes of attention, and then like, here, take a 20-minute break, go to the bathroom, relax, and then we'll get your attention again in 20 more minutes, you know.
I like that. I saw some videos too of your Daredevils kids going on some of this mountain bike. What's that like as a dad?
It's so funny because this little kid of mine, he's 3, and he's a spitting image of my wife. I mean, I don't even look like I was a part of the equation, but his personality is definitely mine. And, you know, when he was, I don't know, maybe just under 2, I got him this little Strider bike, just a bike with no pedals. It's a balance bike. And at first he didn't really want anything to do with it. And I would get frustrated. I'm like, come on, you're going to love this. Get on the bike. And then I found myself almost forcing it on him. So I'm like, forget it. I put it away. Until one day he just grabbed it and just started going down the driveway and picking his feet up in the air and bouncing on this bike. And I'm like, sweet, look at that, awesome. And so I started taking him to the skate park and everything, and he's going down these bowls, and I started taking him to at Floyd Lamb. They opened up this new like pump track out there and these mountain bike trails. So I took him to the pump track, and all of a sudden he's riding his little Strider bike through there. And so I talked to my wife. I was like, we gotta get this kid a bike with pedals. And again, he's like 2.5 at this point. And she's like, well, let's get it for him for his birthday. So I'm like, okay, deal. And I went on Amazon and got the bike like at that moment. And she's like, why did you buy that right now? You're never going to wait till his birthday. And I'm like, we'll keep it hidden. He'll be fine. And then like a week later, I'm pulling that bike out. And I'm like, you're ready for pedals. Let's go, you know. And so, yeah, he turned 3 in July, and he's been riding around on this bike with pedals for 6 months now. So,
but up and down those tracks, though,
yeah.
He's like crushing it.
It's probably better than I would do. I mean, it's impressive.
Yeah, he's a little daredevil for sure.
Yeah. So when are you gonna introduce him to CrossFit? Next year, right?
I mean, he's already got the burpee down a little bit. You know, he's got the burpee down. But we'll see. I kind of want him. I don't want to force anything, even though I just got done saying I almost forced him into riding this bike. But I do want to, I don't know, I put him in like little kids gymnastics, and he's liking that. And I kind of like that because it creates just a ton of body awareness, especially at 3 years old. I don't think there's anything better than just gymnastics and learning how to do forward rolls and backwards rolls and walking on a balance beam and just kind of learning how to control your body in the space. I live across the street from my sister and my brother-in-law, and so his cousins, we are all together, and they're all into wrestling, so I'm sure he's going to wrestle, yes. Which I think is awesome. That's one thing I wish I would have done in high school is wrestle. I think I'd probably be better at CrossFit if I wrestled, because baseball players aren't known to have like the best work ethic. You know, we'd get in trouble, and it's like, take a lap around the field, and we'd get behind the dugout and be like, oh, coach can't see us here. We'll just hang out here for a little bit. And then I look at all my wrestling buddies who just like got a plastic bag on and a sweatsuit and a beanie and just sweating to death. I'm like, dude, you guys. But man, does that build some work ethic, right? So I'm kind of excited about having Mac get into wrestling and stuff, and I think I'm going to treat the CrossFit thing for him as just like a means to work out, and I want him to kind of play sports if he's into it. I'll be introducing him to baseball here soon as well, and then kind of see where he wants to go with it when he gets a little bit older.
Very cool. So we're going to take a quick break, and then we will be back.
So if you have a a student, say for example in freshman year, and you see them throughout their senior year, and they're pretty much identical in terms of like, personality or whatever. One is taking CrossFit, one is taking regular PE. What do you notice in terms of their attitude or just their overall, kind of just growth through that?
Okay, again, I have several students who I've seen for like 4 years doing CrossFit, and the kids that I have that don't do CrossFit, I usually only have them like 2 years, freshman and sophomore year, because again, PE, they're required to take 2 years of PE, and then their junior and senior year they don't have to take it. But I still see them around campus and stuff like that. And again, there's exceptions to every rule. But I do see just kids develop such a sense of confidence when they do this CrossFit thing. Again, they're proving to themselves like on a daily basis that they're capable of doing things they never thought they'd be able to do. They come in their freshman year and they see these kids again doing like handstand push-ups or muscle ups, and they're like, that's never going to happen. And then all of a sudden they can do that, and you can see like a light bulb turn on, like, wow, I could have sworn that I could never do that. And now not only can I do a muscle up, but I can like string together 5 of them, and I think that light bulb turns on, and they're like, wow, there's things in my math class that I could have sworn I could never do. And well, all of a sudden they can do it. And I'm like, yeah, it's because you work hard, you learn that there's things that you want. And if you want something bad enough, I tell them like, I don't care what you want. If you want it, you can get it. You just got to work hard for it, and they learn that, and it's so motivating to see them take that, what they learn in like a CrossFit gym, and apply it to different aspects of their life. And like, yeah, I want to get into this school, or I want to be valedictorian, or whatever it is. And I'm like, whatever it is that you decide you want, you just take the same mindset that you have here in this CrossFit gym, and there might be things that are impossible for you today, but with consistency and time, then nothing's impossible, and it's awesome to see that. Where I feel like the kids who don't do CrossFit, like, I'm not saying that they don't get those experiences. I'm sure they get those experiences maybe somewhere else, because again, I love the CrossFit thing. I'm passionate about it, but I'm also not delusional enough to think that's the end all be all, so I just don't know if I don't see where they're getting that kind of mindset, even though I'm sure that they are getting it. But I do see it in my CrossFit for sure, and I love seeing that for sure.
That's a great message. I love that so much, because I think working hard is something that we don't realize that that's something that we can all affect in the daily life, rather than like, I'm not good at this such and such. I've never been good at it. Right. And then you work hard at it, and then you realize, oh yeah.
Right. And that's what I tell my students all the time. It's funny, like my CrossFit classes, it's not like we have a CrossFit 1, a CrossFit 2, a CrossFit 3, a CrossFit 4. We thought about doing that when we first started this CrossFit class, and we kind of decided against that, because I like the newer people to CrossFit, seeing what they're capable of, and when I have some juniors and seniors in there who've been doing CrossFit for 3 or 4 years, and again, seeing them string together 5 muscle ups or snatching 225 pounds or whatever it is, and they're just like, dude, I can't do that. That's impossible, and then talking to them their senior year and like, remember when that was impossible, and they're like, yeah, dude, that's kind of crazy, so it's super motivating for me. It's super motivating for them. I love it,
And that lesson might even be more important than the physical aspect alone. Like, just having them understand conceptually that you really can get better at things, and it doesn't mean that this person was born really good at mountain biking.
Right.
Like were they? I don't know.
But exactly. I mean, I'll talk to kids all the time where I'm just like, I'll have, like, I had a kid last year who he made it to the second round of like the
the not regionals or sanctionals, but like after the opens for like the age group online qualifier, the masters get that, and then the teenagers they move on to the age group online qualifier, and I had a kid who was a senior last year who made it to that second round, and it was awesome to kind of see him do that and see just his whole demeanor change over 4 years. You know, his freshman year, I remember him getting pinned under a 95-pound barbell, trying to clean it, and just standing up like, and his legs shaking like a baby giraffe, right? And just after, I just remember that so well. And then I remember watching him in that age group online qualifier. There was a one rep max clean and jerk, and keep in mind this kid only weighs like 140 pounds, and he clean and jerked like I think 270 or 275, and he just stood up. And I knew once he stood up with it, I knew he was going to get over his head. He's very, very explosive, and I just wasn't sure if he was going to stand up with it. When he stood up with it, and I knew it was over his head, I was like, "What have you ever thought you were going to like do that your freshman year? Like, remember when you got pinned at 95 pounds?" And he's just like, "Dude, I can't believe I got pinned at 95 pounds. Like, I don't even warm up with 95 pounds anymore, you know?" Right. And that's just awesome.
Yeah, that is. That's super cool.
What's something that you've learned and you wish you knew sooner?
So this might go in a direction you probably weren't expecting. I like to talk about my dad every once in a while. I share stories about my dad with my students and stuff like that. I wish I kind of knew like how powerful like addiction was. You know, my parents got divorced when I was 16 because my dad struggled with addiction, with like gambling, cigarettes, and stuff like that. And my parents got divorced because my dad was constantly just gambling money away, and we didn't have really money to survive. And when I kind of found that out, I hated my dad for a long time. From like 16 to about 30 years old, there probably wasn't a person on this earth I hated more than my dad. I resented him for a million reasons. And then all of a sudden he had this like massive heart attack. And my sister and I went to go visit him in the hospital, and I'm a 30-year-old adult at this time, and I wasn't sure if he was going to make it or not, and I was just sitting there like, dude, what have I been doing these last 14 years? Like, this is my dad who kind of hit me that he like loved me when I never really kind of accepted that, and I had this wedge in our relationship for a long time. And then I guess long story short, he came through. He had a little bit of brain damage. Like he had to go into like an assisted living facility after that. And he ended up living 5 more years before he passed away. And those last 5 years from like 30 to 35 were probably like the best years I had with my dad, you know. And I often think back like, why did I let this wedge last so long, you know? I try to tell my students all the time that there's 2 people in this world who are going to like love you no matter what. That's your mom and dad. Doesn't matter what you do, right? They're going to love you no matter what. So you need to kind of take advantage of that. And that's when I kind of share that story, because I feel like I wasted a lot of years where I could have harbored a better relationship with my dad, especially now that I'm a dad, you know, and I look at things like I'm not a perfect dad, and what I want my son to kind of resent me for the mistakes that I made, or that I continue to make, or mistakes that I'm going to make in the future. I wish it didn't take a catastrophic moment for me to kind of learn that. So,
yeah. So just let them know, like, that your parents like do care about you and don't like.
Right. I mean,
take the time that you can when you can.
Yeah, for sure. Like I tell them all the time, like, unplug every once in a while. Like, they have their headphones in all the time, 100% of the time, you know. It's like, if you're lucky enough that your parents are going to cook a meal for you or take you to a restaurant to go eat, give them 15 or 20 minutes and take the headphones out of your ears and have a conversation with them, you know, because sooner or later that time's going to come where you would do anything for one more conversation, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and especially too, once you leave the home, one thing that you never realize too is like those home cooked meals are such an amazing thing. Like you come back home, like from college or wherever you go, and your mom makes something you had when you're growing up, and you're like, wow, like I can't believe how much I missed this, and I totally wasn't thinking about it.
For sure, like I'll probably never eat top ramen ever again. Because like when I was in college, that's what that was lunch and dinner. Like I'd make a bowl of top ramen and I'd put a hard boiled egg in there or boil an egg while it's cooking, and that was my protein and carbs every day. And it's like that's not. I can't even touch top ramen anymore.
Yeah.
How about regular ramen?
I guess you're asking the wrong person. I like Thai food, like
okay.
I love Archie's and La Thai and Pin Cow. My wife and I, we're definitely fans of the Thai food. So I guess if that counts as ramen, I don't know.
There's some really good Thai food out here. I've been impressed in general with all the restaurants out here for the most part. Pretty good.
Oh yeah, for sure. If you're a foodie, I don't know if there's a better place than Las Vegas.
You can find pretty much everything here too.
Yeah.
I've really been surprised. So, talking about food, what is your favorite cheat meal?
Oh, dude. Favorite cheat meal. I mean, when it comes to like the meal, I don't know if I need I'm not like a lasagna guy or a pizza guy. Like I can eat like I love steak, but I don't think I wouldn't count a nice filet mignon as a cheat meal. But I would count the dessert as I'm a dessert guy. Like I love cheesecake. I love even like chocolate chip cookies, like this crumble cookie place. Man, this is a bad thing for me, man.
Yeah,
because I love that stuff. Like I've never been into candy. Like I can say no to candy, no problem. I can say no to ice cream most of the time. There's some good ice cream, but for the most part, I can say no to that. But man, like a crumble cookie or a piece of cheesecake, that's my I don't know, that's my crut.
Those are pretty good. Those crumble cookies are almost kind of like fancy cookies, like designer level cookies.
Dude, they're big and they're so good. They're so good.
They have like a 1/4 inch of icing on the top too. It's just like a big old like it's been painted on.
You talk to my wife, she's like, "Oh, they're too sweet," and I'm like, "Are you crazy? Like too sweet? There's no such thing, right?" Like I love it.
Oh, I bet your kids love those too.
Oh, I'm sure. Probably too much.
So, what's something that you commonly see that you, like, I guess at school, that you wish other people knew? I know you kind of touched on that earlier with the learning things are possible.
I think this is something that they probably know inherently, like this whole like theory of relativity. Everybody has a different perspective. I think a lot of people are like their own like harshest critic. Even here coming on this podcast, I'm like, oh, the sound of my own voice, this is weird. But for you guys, it's like, oh, you sound normal, and to me it doesn't sound normal. I feel like I don't know, life is just like this puzzle, and the more pieces of perspective that you can get, I think the easier it is to kind of make, I don't know, decisions and whatnot, because what is, I don't know, I guess weird to me in my perspective might not be weird to you. Maybe it is weird to you, I don't know, but it might not be weird to you. But I just feel like the more perspective you can pull in, and just understanding that our experiences, our circumstances, all of that kind of influence our perspective, and then surround yourself with people with different perspective, I think helps you just get a better idea of who you are, what you want to do, what you can do, and stuff like that. So,
very cool.
Love that. So what's something that you're excited about that you're working on, either professionally, physically, mentally? It doesn't have to be all, but just something you're excited about.
Like I said, I'm a relatively new dad. I have a 3-year-old. I have a 1.5-year-old. I love being a dad. I didn't know I would love being a dad as much as I do, and I'm excited for like every day to like see them learn things that I've been like teaching, like, because I used to teach health also, and just to see, I don't know, things that I guess I've taken for granted, you know, like, again, my son riding his bike, seeing him, I don't know, go down one of these hills or ride off a curb for the first time. He's like, Dad, did you see that? And he's like, I don't know, I just love to see him progress, and sometimes I almost feel like I catch myself like, oh, I can't wait till he can do this, or I can't wait till I can do this with him. And then I had a buddy tell me, he's like, hey, just slow down there, Turbo, because that day's going to come, and then you're going to miss out on what's going on right now. I was like, enjoy the moment, and don't be too excited for what's coming, because then you're going to miss out what's happening right now. But I am super excited to, and I don't know, sometimes I catch myself just, I can't wait for this, I can't wait for that, and I see my daughter like starting to climb these playgrounds and stuff, and she looks down the slide and she's too scared to go down. I'm like, oh, come on. And she's got this look of fear in her eyes, and then she actually goes, and halfway down the slide, all of a sudden she's smiling and she's running back up, and I'm like, oh, that was awesome, you know, to see her kind of get out of her comfort zone and see that she can enjoy these things that were scary, you know. I don't know. I'm excited to see what comes next with that.
That's awesome. And what's something you'd like to leave listeners with?
What do I want to leave listeners with? You know, I'm a high school teacher. I work with kids 14 to 18 years old. I love these kids. I like these kids so much. I love, they keep me young, you know, like I'm up to date with TikTok and all that stuff. You know, they make fun of me for being on Facebook because I'm old. But these kids are good kids, you know. I see like things happening with, I don't know. I feel like it's so easy to discriminate against youth, where like, oh, these stupid kids tagging this up, or stupid kids doing that, stupid kids causing trouble. And I know kids cause trouble. We all caused trouble when we were kids too. But these are good kids, you know. I don't know. I love these kids, and I'd like to see people kind of give kids a little bit more of a benefit of the doubt, and not blame everything on them, and give them a little bit more respect and appreciate the things that they're capable of. Because, like as a teacher, I feel like I teach them a lot, but I tell them on day one, you know, I appreciate you guys because there's things that you guys teach me every single day, you know, and that's kind of the beauty of being a human being. We have this ability to be like lifelong learners, and just because I'm 40 years old and they're 14 years old doesn't mean they can't teach me anything. They've experienced things I haven't experienced, and they can bring those experiences into my classroom and teach me. You know, I think there's a lot of value in that. So,
yeah, very cool. So how can people find you if they want to reach out to you?
On Instagram is probably the easiest way. We have a school Instagram, West Tech CrossFit. With the COVID thing, we've been a little bit less active on Instagram because we don't have physical students in our gym right now. Waiting for that day to come, hopefully sooner than later. But that's probably if for some reason you wanted to get a hold of me, that's the best way probably.
Well, thank you, Grayson. We really appreciate you coming on today, and we really enjoyed the conversation.
Yep. Thanks for everything you do for the school and for the kids. I've been up there and seen it. It's awesome. I wish that they had that stuff when I was growing up. I'm like super jealous. But I think what you're doing is awesome, man. Like, keep it up.
Thank you. I really appreciate you guys asking me to be on the show. I don't know if I'm qualified to be on the show, but
we are. So,
all right.
Thank
you.
Yeah. Thanks. We'd like to thank you for listening to La Vida Las Vegas Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the time with our guests as much as we did. It would help us out so much if you could share, subscribe, or review our podcast, or any combination of the three. Thanks again, and remember to take care of yourself.